All right, we are back once again for another in-between session of Product Like It's Friday, even though it is Sunday today. Yesterday, I left off with um, doing some additions. Let me actually just share my screen. That'll be the easiest for me to show where we left off. I left off with working on some elements here. For example, I had started off with getting the brand colors in play that Mary had put together. I played around with starting a leaderboard, and it's a bare bones leaderboard at this point because all I have is the remaining players at the time that the game ends. I haven't done anything extra on that end. And then this idea of recording the time hasn't come into play yet because we haven't built a timer yet. And maybe that's one of the next steps of functionalities that I look into is building out a timer, which would be on this page. But Mary had advanced some elements on this page with, right, we're just doing some exploration. These aren't sort of the final things. We're just throwing ideas out, seeing what lands, putting things in place. Nothing is finalized. All of this might change, especially as we play around different concepts and different ideas. And as we learn more about this, as we use the app ourselves, and as we realize things that are more important than not. One example was whether this lock-in button should be the central, like one of the central pieces on this page, and whether it's a timer or this, because this is really for the facilitator or the teacher, not for the student, as they are now answering this question. That would probably be the timer in this scenario. And then we had this idea of displaying bees here for each of the contestants, each of the players. And this might change. Again, these are sort of base ideas that we've thrown out. I didn't do much here on this page. I just kind of created, like I used this font here and that's about it. And I tried to create some kind of a player avatar. And then I realized, hey, I'm doing a lot of copy pasting in this app. There's so many elements here. Oh, one of the other things we did was, actually I should share this. When we submit the players and we create them, I'm generating an adjective from the backend and an avatar that's based on an emoji of an animal. And so, right, so I'm throwing in some debugging elements on the page. Oh, wow. Hey, Manas, nice to see you here. Okay. So I'm throwing debugging elements on the page. I'm doing a lot of copy pasting just so I can get move forward in the app. But I'm realizing maybe this is a good spot to now take a step back, do a little bit of refactoring. I have this element here that sort of pops up in different places, and I've just copy pasted that, and this should be its own component that's being reused so that the adjective and the icons are being displayed consistently everywhere. And so there's that refactoring. I want this debugging stuff. I've copy pasted it from place to place. I just wanted to be consistent on every single game related page so that it's easier for me to debug as we go. And yeah, that's really it. I'd like to just, lay back and just do some high level refactoring. Nothing too major. And then, but having that said, where I do want to start is one of the commenters, one of the watchers of the video, Hinoji, popped in the other day, left a bunch of useful comments, and one of them was to use Faker in order to generate the players. And then when he said that, I actually just started using Faker to generate these icons and these adjectives. And the next step was to generate the players using Faker. And that's just for testing purposes right now. I could just create a button here. It will generate a list of players for me, just so I could play around with this without having to type that in over and over. Makes the process easier for me. Big fan of building testing into apps, even if it's hidden. So I'll go ahead and do that as a first step. And then the rest of it, I'll start with the refactoring. I just want to mention, I spent about 45 minutes just trying to get this text color to be black. So there was that. All right, here we are with submit players, and I want to add another button here. So I'll find submit players in the app. It's right over here. And I want to, let me just see what happens if I just copy this. That's fine. And let me just add flex with a gap of 4 seems fine to me. And then I can say generate players here and create a generate players function. And this can probably be an outline button instead of a primary button. And then I have this, which does not look great, honestly, with the color scheme that we have, just again, because of that. This text color should probably just be this. And since I went through that 45-minute experience of trying to get it to work, hopefully today I can do it fairly simply. But I'm not sure how this will look. Having done this is not great either. I mean, the outline button is not really a good fit for the background that we have, which is this white background and the primary colors that we're using. So I'm going to go to Next UI really quickly without trying to, get too into the look and feel. Look for our buttons here and just remind myself what other variants exist so I can see. Neutral. I don't want maybe secondary outline will look better. So let me comment this out. Let me come out here and yeah, I don't need 2 primary buttons, right? So we'll try out the secondary view here to see. Yeah, that also is no good. So we might want a different variant. So let me see what's available to me here. Soft is good, actually. That creates that background, which is actually might be a better fit for, nope, not a better fit. I was like, maybe that might be a better fit. It is not. Let's try subtle, ghost, link. No, none of these are, because our main colors are not, seems like they're not great for the background that we have. So just a note. And so I'll probably just go solid secondary for this one. Again, like this is not worth spending all this time on. It's just, we did change the colors, so that becomes just a matter to think about. All right, so when I generate players, I just want maybe 5 or 3 players to be automatically generated. So let me just create that function down here. Generate players. Let's see what the AI is giving me. I'm not sure here. Let's see. It's sort of take the player's name is generating a player's array, which is not what we want. So it's not at all what we want. So what if I give it a comment? Generate player names using Faker. Will this sort of pick up on that comment and try and do something? Yeah, seems like it. So let me split screen here and do a proper import of Faker. And I want to make sure that this is functional. No corresponding, I think Faker, let me just search for my usages of, I think it's Faker.js and not just Faker. Yeah, it's this line here. So this is what I actually want to import. AI was useless in that instance. And then I probably don't want to find name. So let me go to Faker.js and find what the API is. I'm surprised you can't just click here. Like, you know, I come to this interface, I want to generate people names, but I can't just click here. I want to generate location names. I can't just click here and go to the docs right away. That's interesting. So person. I'm going to do full name. And the API for that is Faker.person.full name. Yeah, that seems to work. And I have my players array. And then I just need to double check here. Enter player names 1 per line. That's my player names model. So yeah, that seems correct. And then the player list, I don't think, I have a bug in my IDE, so which is why we see this blinking happening when I open the same screen twice, and I have not yet gotten to fixing that, but it is annoying me tremendously. All right. I got my figure full name, and I was at this part of the code a while back. So player lists we don't really generate or use until later. So this is actually not what we want. We simply want player names to be populated when generate players is clicked. I'm going to close that second window because it's driving me. And it says here it's deprecated. So I just want to use figure.person. And that's fixed. So now when I come back and I click here, I expect to see 10 names. Let's actually make it just 3 for simplicity. I expect to see 3 names pop in here. That's more elaborate than I thought. I don't think Dr. Darlene Goyette Camarada will be playing Math Bee anytime soon. She might be a math enthusiast. Maybe this doctor's like a PhD in mathematics. But let me just quickly see if there's any API to give me like a simpler name. Like, yo, just keep it easy, I'm not trying to, there really isn't. So let's just sorry, let's just do this in a much simpler way. Let's just get a first name and a last name. That was funny. Okay, and I'm clicking here and it's generating, 3 different names each time, and that's good enough for me. And when I submit these players, I get to review, I can start, and I have an adjective generated and their name and some icon. Perfect. I will just go ahead and commit this. So just taking a look at the changes I made. I don't need this change anymore. So let me get rid of that. And then just reviewing the changes I've made here, adding Faker and being able to generate that. That looks good to me. So testing names with, using Faker. Okay. And then next step I want to do is just take a, do a review of the framing of the code, because I have a bunch of pages created and one page kind of leads into another. A lot of the activity on the pages is similar. So let me just, get my head around that. So I have one page, which is the landing page, which has setup tips, right? And this is the page where we submit the player names so that the game can proceed. And once we do that, and look, this is coming in handy as well, I don't have to type this out. Once we do that, we still remain on that landing page. Just this view changes, and once you click Start Game, we get into a game with an ID and a round, right? So we're on the start. It's not the start game. So there's game landing page, and then there's like a round. Yeah, this is a round starting page. So I thought I had like a notes file, which I probably got rid of because all those notes were no good. So let me go ahead and add a notes file for myself, and I can just say, okay, I have a game landing page, submit players, and start, and then I have a round start page, and one leads to the other. And then I have a turn page within that. So I can even sort of do this. And I have a turn page where people are answering questions. There's a bunch of interactions here. We're still on the turn page. So there's all turn page logic here. So there's those. And that's all we sort of have right now. And I want to maybe share the outer template amongst all these levels. Right now, I just copy pasted my way through. So let me do a check again of how this is set up. So this index with the setup tips, and just to help me, I'm just going to be like, okay, game landing page. Because as I'm moving through these pages, it can get confusing even for myself. And this game ID page is actually not used. Like it's here, but it's not used. It would be, for example, this, not this page, sorry. It would be this page, for example, and this is a blank page. It's not being used. I created it earlier, like, I think day 1 of coding, I created it. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete it. Not being used. And then game ID, There's a leaderboard, great. And then there is a round ID page. And let me find the header and just say round start page. And let's just double check here. Right, we saw the error come in. You know, I deleted the page and we got a 404 right away. And now I generate players, get in here, start game. This is my round start page. Perfect. And I'm just kind of taking inventory after having done a bunch of code. And this is my turn page. So let me find the header. And, well, I mean, this is super simple, right? There's like literally a turn thing in there, but let me just, for consistency, add turn page. And so as I'm changing the code around, as I'm modifying things, everything is in my context. So now I've built my context for myself. I realize that there's an error here, but I will not care about it because my goal is not to fix that error. My goal is to do some refactoring to make debugging and the code a bit cleaner. Once I do the page level refactoring, the other refactoring bit I want to do is some of this code, like for example, the get game code, which is fetching the game data from the server, is being run on multiple pages over and over. It's the exact same code. I've duplicated types, I've duplicated variables. So all of that cleanup is going to happen soon. All right, so we'll start here. The unique part here on this page is that there is no game, right? There's no game object. We have yet to create it. There are no players. So does it make sense for this to actually be a fuller template? I am not sure yet, but I'm actually okay to make that mistake. Like I'm actually okay to start off that way and be wrong and revert later. So, So one thing is that they all have, and really maybe all I need to do is extract that debugging element and turn that into its own component and not really have to worry about a broader template, right? Because that doesn't even exist on this page. So maybe there's actually no need to do what I was initially thinking. And I could probably just extract whatever debugging elements I have here. So I'm just going to take a second to process that in my brain. Yeah, let's do that. But okay, I'm kind of jumping back and forth in my head. I haven't like become super concrete. And this is another time where like when you're live stream, when you're at your desk and nobody's watching, you're like, okay, whatever. Or even if people are watching, that's fine. You're like, whatever, flip-flopping. But anytime I flip-flop on stream, I'm like, do I even know how to make any decisions in my life? But okay, let me actually sort of walk through the slight pros and cons. Actually, this I will fix. I did see a deprecation here, which the AI brought back. Like I had actually fixed it manually, and then when I relied on the AI line, it did not go for the it uses deprecated version. Okay, so I want to see whether there's anything here. Really, the only thing that can be extracted here as a template would be this U card. But I generally do not see a reason to do that because it's not serving any reason. It's like, it might seem like the card is duplicated, but that's actually not that big a deal. And that was my initial kind of thought is, oh, I extract that, but that's actually useless and would be a waste of time. So now I have a more concrete idea is I want to extract some of these and maybe even build in sort of a debugging thing. But it turns out that this data that it's using needs to be consistent in a certain place. Well, actually, it doesn't need to be. That's not true. I was thinking, hey, why don't I actually go do the thing that I was talking about earlier, which is extract these elements first, that fetching of the data. But actually, that's not true. It doesn't need to be. So I can actually hunker down and focus on just this. So here I'm on the round page, and I'm displaying this. And that's on this page, displaying the players. And I have something slightly different. So I'll just have that bit of code up here. And then I have something slightly different on the turn page, which is this page. Actually, it's exactly the same except for one line, which makes it a kind of a perfect use case for extracting, and I just make them equivalent. So what I want to do is maybe say something like game debugger. And for now, it can get the, all it really is, well, is doing a few things. So what I could probably just say is, whoops, I can just add a game debugger, and maybe it could just be generic data for now. Because really, I'm just outputting like game players and total active player count, right? Those are the variables that I'm displaying. Here, I'm not even displaying game yet. So I can do that and then come down here and open up a component and actually create the component, game debugger.view. And it's a template, and we won't do this. Like I mean, you know, sometimes the AI kind of is almost distracting because it doesn't know what I intend to do yet, but it starts making suggestions. So I just want something more bare bones, and I just want to copy actually this whole div here, get it out, and none of these are defined. So let me go ahead and define these elements in a script. Okay, and then just trying to see whether I need, so define props. And here it does actually do a good job of effectively defining the prop for me. So I have that prop defined. I can define this prop, which is a number, and I can define a game prop. And all of these, I'm just going to say any for now, because the even here, I'm actually going to just delete this off and say any, because there's no reason for me to be proper when these elements might change at a broader level. I'll go ahead and add like the game entirely. I could get rid of this because this data is actually just duplicated in this players. So this becomes much simpler. And then, oh yeah, I've made a mistake here already, which is I could just simplify this to just be one big, yeah, because all I need is data any, right? I've said data here, and because I might pass in more data later, and then I just make this data, and that's it. This is super simple, nothing complex, but just being mindful of the idea that I'm going to use this over and over, and so why not extract it? And I'm here, and I have my game data up here. I have my players up here, which I'm now realizing are part of the game because I restructured the database or the endpoints of the backend. So question is, do I even need players even here? So probably not. I just need to pass in the game data and the total active players. And just because of visibility, I probably should switch this so that I get to see total active players, and that's quick data I can just assess. And then later on, well, yeah, I have to see whether, so I'm using total active player count in the app, so that's fine. And now I can take this bit here and go to my round page or my turn page and just replace that. And now when I start the turn, I have that component out there, and now I'm not copy paste. You know, if I add debugging data to one page, I don't need to copy it to the other page, which is what I was doing. So let's take a look here at what I need to commit. I've added the game debugger components, deleted a page I didn't need. Just taking a quick look at the changes I've made here. I added the context for myself so I don't get lost, and I refactored this bit of code. And the same thing here, exact same pattern here. And then, this is just the context. So creating a game debugger component. Okay, awesome. So that was step one. And then the other thing I want to do is go everywhere there was current player and this next step business and modify this to use that player avatar that I had created. So let's find instance. Oh, there's only one current player instance. And let me remind myself what the usage of the player avatar was. And that's just passing it in the player, although I see that there's an error here. So maybe this is a good time to review that error to see. I just copy pasted without thinking. In this case, the variable is current player, not first player. And so that works. Ajar Catherine is here with the dolphin emoji. Let me quickly see what the error is here. Undefined is not assignable to player display. That's fine. I think generally, you know, like maybe none of this should happen, to be honest, if player doesn't exist. So I can't actually say we if current player. This might cause issues later on, but I'm also actually just comfortable with those issues. Now I'm getting a different error. Property game ID is missing in. So let's just see what the type of this is. So this is a limited type that I created. And then this is a deeper player display type, which is expecting more things. And so here I could just actually say partial. And hopefully, which means that, hey, some variables might be there, some of them won't, and that's fine. That's acceptable. And hopefully that changes the error message here. If it doesn't, then I don't know if I want to spend too much time on it. It did. No, it didn't. It just took a second to come back. Property state are incompatible. So that actually is something I ought to look into. So state here is just a string, and state here is specifically defined to be, you know, specific things. So I think specificity in this case is better. So let me go ahead and modify that. Oops, didn't want to go there. Also did not want to go there. No, I'm just trying to find. So I can do two things. I can either duplicate it, which is fine. Or I can also do something like player display state, which will copy it or just kind of reuse it, not copy it rather. I could do that for all these fields, but that's fine for now. This is still giving me issues. State or now they're equal, man. Like, bro, for real? Current player is players. I think now you should be like, because state is this. And I have set game players as, no. This is the problem with my typing here. So this is the duplication, exactly the kind of duplication I wanted to clear here. I'm gonna create again, I'm still doing more duplication, but because I haven't quite netted out on what fields I want and don't want. So I'll take these, replace them here, just create a local player for now and deal with the local player type. And here, this will use player display state. And now that can be shared amongst this, so I can have local player. Here now when I do the refactoring, I just have to change this, which makes that easier. And hopefully that's enough for that error to go away. That error is gone, but now I have different errors. And that's because I continually sort of force my way through this typing. So let me now use local player broadly. So this is exactly the kind of refactoring I wanted. I still have an error here, and which I said I was going to ignore earlier, but maybe now is a good time to look at it. Undefined is not assignable to type number, which is probably happening because current player may or may not exist at this point. And I can say if not current player.value, not just return. I want to throw an error, right? Like it makes no sense for this to continue if there's no current player. And then I can be precise here and remove that question mark because I know I have that value in the code because I have some error checking there. And now I'm looking for errors on this page, and it seems like everything is fairly error-free, at least on this page here, which is my what page? Let's go to the header. It's my turn page. So yeah, this is the page I'm on, and I've modified some elements here to be extracted. What I don't like in terms of what I did was even this type here, I'll need, like, so many places where I've just kind of forced my way through in terms of assigning these types. So that probably is a good reason for me to create a global types file. And what I'll do is I'll create a utils folder and create a types file there. And here I will, let me find local player again. I was in that file and I just lost it. I'm going to take this out and export it here so I can just kind of use a local player type that is extracted instead. And here I want to import local player, not from imports, but from utils types. And hopefully this just works. Yeah, okay. There's a bit of an error here, but that was just the IDE catching up to the change in code. So now I've refactored this so that I have a shared local player type, and maybe I get rid of this later altogether, but at least now it's consolidated in one place. The other place that I want to do more consolidation is back on the round page. So let me do that second, but first let me just commit what I have here. So I've added a utils for the types, so that's fine. I just did that, so I'm not going to review that again. And here I've made this partial, so okay. And then here I've done some wholesale refactoring in order to extract that local player type, do some error correction, check if variables exist, that kind of business. So clean up on the turn page. That's what I'll call it. And now I can come back here and look at what I need to do on the page above. Not this page, but this page. And I have some of the same errors, like look at this, same typing issues. And again, that's indicative of my lax consideration for clean code, which I will argue is what I should have done. Okay, so here, I'm just going to make some assumptions. It'll create some errors and I'll resolve the errors. So I don't have to be right in my assumptions to begin. So let me get rid of this and just use local player here. Pull that in. Whoops, did it automatically get pulled in? No. Which means that I actually don't have to import just because of the way Nuxt works. On certain file levels, things are available to the entire app. So I guess where I did the local player import, I don't have to do this import at all, which is actually nice. So let me do that and see whether that creates any errors. No errors there, so I'll leave it that way. Although you might argue that it's better to be explicit, and it is actually, but with IDEs these days, you could just press the shortcut to take you to that type and you're there. So game.value.players has a different value. So honestly, it's not even local players here that I want. And I might run back into some of the issues that I was having in the previous session. So should this just actually be player display? And when I do player display, I think I know what to do. So this still has an error, right? And I'm going, there's an error. What am I supposed to do? So this value is actually coming from here, which is get game. So I go to get game, which is on the back end, and get game is getting this information from find game by ID, right? So we get find game by ID and we return it. And this here at the backend state has date. But we actually want to type it by what we'll see on the front end. And so here I can actually do something like players as player display array. And this is, it's mildly cheating, but not entirely. Wait, you don't like it? Why would you want me to convert it to a known first? I mean, these are very... I'm okay. Yeah, let's convert it to unknown before I do that. It's just because the types don't match, right? The date and the players don't match. So maybe this shouldn't even be done here. But I don't want to duplicate this code. So I will do it here for now. And then any problems this creates, I will deal with later. And now I'm like, why did I do that at all? Because my assumption was coming back here, I'm using player display here. What I should be getting back from here now is strings in the dates, which matches the player display object. So why am I still getting this error here? Number, ID, game, string, state, created at, and updated at is not assignable to player display. Why? It's literally the same. It's literally the same type. Game.value players, right? And like it's, what am I did spend a little bit of time on this before and got lost. So the question is, do I need to spend any time on this at all? Like, is this actually useful? I would like to figure out what's happening here, and I'm unclear. Let me just take a second to see. Seems like value is player display array or this array. But then I guess at this stage, the question becomes, do I even need like a players.value? Because ultimately, I'm just using that data from game anyway. So let me assess that theory. So I should just here be able to do game.value.players, right? So what if I did get rid of this? It'll give me a bunch of different errors, and I go fix those errors. So game.value.players, and that's sensible. And game.value.players here again, gotta get rid of this. And now let me just find, like, so that's fine, is possibly undefined. I mean, so, oh, right, that's fine. So it is possibly undefined, which means R0. That's a good correction, actually. And that's happening because game value may or may not be populated at this point. And that is something, if it's an issue, that I would take a look at later. So it seems like that is probably the right thing to do, but I might have broken the code. So I'm here now on the round start page, which I can just go back to from the URL. And everything actually just seems legitimately fine here. So, and maybe that's a good case for me to do. I think I created these player arrays back when I didn't have a backend model. I just wanted to move through the app. So that makes sense. And now let's see players. And now I can just get rid of local player if that's no longer makes sense, right? So let's get rid of that. And then everywhere else, same thing, game.value.players, get rid of this value, game.value.players. See, this is the kind of stuff I'd love for AI to do, like even hint, the moment I get rid of this, it's like, hey, do you want to do this? And just do it for me versus like trying to write the entire app. Right, and this makes sense too, because the moment I'm reloading the game value, everything just updates automatically. I don't have to update two variables. And here, this is being duplicated, and maybe we'll refactor that out in a bit. Next player.adjective is not liked, does not exist on type whatever next player is. And so let's go to next player and see where that value is coming from. Yo, player should have adjective, right? Game.value.players, which is player display. And now we're like sharing the types broadly, and adjective is right here, right? So this comes from player. Player is selectable player table, which has adjective. Oh, it might be null. Is that the reason? No, that was not the error. The error was, hey, it doesn't even exist. And so this is an annoying case where, I mean, okay, before I rant, let me just revisit what's happening here. So property adjective does not exist on number, ID, game ID, name, state, created at, updated at, which is presumably the type of player. And this, I mean, this typing here does not seem to have. So let me go over to next player, and let's take a look at players. And players here does not have that, which is coming from game, right? So game here does not have an adjective here, and the game type, well, yeah, the ID is not helping me get to the game type. So that's fine, but I know that it's coming from get game straight up. And it does not, yeah, okay. So this is on me, right? I think I might not be. Select from players where game ID is equal to this, and this players should just be player table, which does have the adjective here. Look, it's right here. And then I do this, so does player display not have an adjective? Player display omits certain fields. I should be able to quickly test that out, right? So if I did something like const player is equal to const player is equal to players dot find something, right? And then I'll just write this code here, and then I'll say console.log player. All this to just take a look at the type, because this type does have adjective, and that's very clear. And then I can say const display player is equal to player as player display. And what if I did this? This for sure an easier way of doing this. And here, unfortunately, it's like I won't even tell you what's in player display. But just for clarity here, I have not, I omitted these fields, but I didn't modify any. And selectable player should have adjective, and it yeah, so player does have adjective. I am mildly frustrated here. So let me just experiment a little bit. Let me get rid of this omit. Like I have some suspicions, like maybe the omit is causing these issues. And what if I remove that omit and had my player display straight up without any omits? Maybe that omit business is creating some issues for me. And let's go back. I can just get rid of all this because this is useless. And back here, adjective is not found. I'm actually baffled. Like, what am I, like, which part of the train am I missing, right? Seems like adjective is missing and icon is missing. So what am I missing? Like, the ID is not helpful in going to the type. It is helpful in going to here. So as I do player display array, which is also not helpful to me. Actually, here I got rid of that code, which I said was useless, but maybe there is a use here that I did not anticipate. So I should be able to do adjective here, and this works. Yeah, this works. So player display does have adjective, which is what we're returning here, which means up the chain. So next player comes from game.value.players, and game comes from here. And so there's nothing in the chain. Like, you know, sometimes when intelligence, there's nothing in the chain here that that I feel like I'm missing, which means that something is wrong in how this is being translated. So let me actually follow that through, right? I think there's some part of the chain that I have not really looked at deeply. So, which is really get game. So let me go to get game here. Get game does nothing, guys. Get game just straight up returns find player by ID, which we have verified has an adjective. So I'm like actually just like kind of stunned. Oh, I see some issues here. Like when I did that and, it's like this thing needs to be date and string. So my omit was incorrect. Like, so when I was trying that omit, but it's a separate issue. I can probably adjust and fix it like this. Let's see if we can't be just like far more explicit here. So this is where I was before. And what if I did adjective here? Like just straight up throw it in, even though this seems very just like unnecessary. And if now that error returns, and it might in a second, seems like that error's, no, it has returned. So, I mean, where in the chain is this being modified? Computed value. I'm doing a find straight up. So it might be null, right? It might be undefined. I'm back where I was like 5 minutes ago. Okay. Number, ID, game, name, state, players, local player. And this is where maybe some of that like duplication is fine. I mean, honestly, like this error shouldn't even be happening. So that duplication is actually not fine technically, but why does next player even have name? Like, why does this work? V if next player, just trying to, what about current player? Current player has the same issue, I believe, like that adjective business. And you know, this is something both of these cases are cases where I need to replace this with like the player avatar. So both equally upsetting here. Okay, so let me just take a second to collect my thoughts. I tried adding player to type display explicitly, knowing that type display was coming back. What if I do something else here? What if I in get game, what if I don't even have this like display business, right? Because I use that as a crutch. What if I just straight up had players, which was there before, and you know, it still has like this date, which will cause errors and issues, but maybe I can address that on the front end instead of the back end. So now when I come here, like I do see adjective here in players, right? Like I'm not going insane. Okay, so I do see adjective here. And let me just look at errors on this page. There are no errors on this page. Is that it? Was that it? It still doesn't make sense because this type should have adjective, but okay, fine. It works. It works. It's, you know, it wasn't even worth the 15 minutes I spent on it, to be honest. But here we are. It happens. But if it's happening on this page, then I need to consider. Well, I could get rid of this. I could get rid of this. I will need to consider what's happening on that other page as well. So no, which is not to say there's no errors on this page. It just means there's no typing issues on this page. And I can come back here and see whether there's any issues here. And let's see now, because I was using this player display business in this thing, now that error is coming back to bite me. And maybe here is where I address it and not in the place before. So can I just omit? So can I, there's player. All right, so let's just take a look. There's player, which has this. And the only problem here are the dates. Player update insert. So maybe I can just use player straight up. The only non-primitive here is date. And then maybe I can do my omit business here. I've just accepted this bit of code here, but that's not really what I want. I just want to remove created at and updated at here. And that's all I want to do and wrap up here. And this I feel should be consistent enough to pass in player, but allegedly not. Oh, undefined is not assignable. That's fine. And if there is no first player, which means there are no players, then I think it's okay for me to do this. So this is very similar to the check that we did in the, and again, this may cause issues, but now at least we can get at them. And I'm just thinking maybe my debugging code should be elsewhere, like outside of all of this, right? And even that I can address later. So I'm fine. I'm here out on the round page. And I have addressed this whole kind of player typing business. Here is, yeah, it's set here. And then just double checking out here. And am I using avatar? I am, and this is all clear here. So there's probably a few other places I need to modify the avatar stuff, but for now, I'm happy with this progress, albeit a bit complex and unnecessary. And just looking at here to see, like, ultimately that local player types that I had extracted is no longer even necessary. But it's a good first, like, it, you know, that was not time wasted though. This was time wasted, so this file does not need to change at all. And then get rid of player display here, and this file also has no changes. So it's just saying don't need players ref, because we're getting that straight from our game object. And at this point, I just want to take a step back to be like, okay, let me go through the process and assess the changes I've made. So I have Miriam, who's the starting player. That seems correct. Standard and sea lion. So there is no icon for sea lion. And so those are the kinds of things we'll check later. So on this page, I have some extra debugging information, right? I have current player and I have next player. And so let me actually go back first to see if there's anything I missed here. Does not seem like that is the case. let me go ahead and change this next step player to use the avatar as well. And maybe later that changes. So the next step stuff happens a few times, all in that turn page, and I want all of these instances, right? So I want to replace this with the player avatar. Okay, that's good. Let's go to that next instance. So this will be next player. Okay, that's good. Let's go to the next instance. And all of these are next player. So, and here I'm getting that issue of saying, hey, next player might not exist at this stage. And that's fair. Let me just assess. Right, and that's fine. If next player doesn't exist, then we actually don't have to show this button at all. So I can come out here and say if next player, thank you. And that should address that error. There's no other typing issues on this page, which means when I come back, I should see the avatar probably displayed. Great, fairly happy with that. Now I want to see Miriam get inactive by answering incorrectly. And the moment I click that, Miriam is inactive, and next up is gifted so-and-so. So maybe there's a different way of displaying this as well, because I'm just seeing that avatar in there doesn't seem nice. So maybe we get rid of the avatar icon there, or maybe this is just a different way of representing this altogether, and that's fine too. Just doing a time check. I'm an hour in. That's actually not bad for an hour, even with our detours and errors. Next up, and here in this case, I want to answer correctly for our next two users. And so I move on to the next round with the other two. And in this case, right, there's no more players. And the only thing I can do is conclude the round. There's probably a case to be said that this probably shouldn't be, like that, but that's fine too. And then let me take a look here. We got inactive, we got active and active, so that's fine. Gloomy Joanne. That's actually funny. Next player is gifted Olin, which is correct because Miriam's not in the game anymore. Lock and answer. If I mark this as incorrect, Olin is out and Joanne's still in. I'm just trying to get some thoughts together in my head, which is, like, am I done with the level of refactoring that I wanted or not? Because everything else in the game is where I left it. So do I move on with functionality, or do I consider some extra refactoring bits that I spoke about earlier, which is specifically this stuff, right? I thought, hey, maybe I need to refactor this out because a bunch of the code was duplicated. And part of the bunch of the code was all that player's business, right? Because I had a player reference and I was populating it with the game data, but I'm not doing that anymore. So it's like, it doesn't seem like all that much duplication to me at this stage. Really, it's just this bit. So does that actually need to be separate? I mean, total active players might be duplicated a little bit. It's not that big a deal to me. Current player, next player, it would be nice if those were set perhaps. And then in a round, just trying to get my head across, like, should I actually take a sip of water, but should I make any changes here? Like, is it worthwhile? Like, I could refactor it, but is it worthwhile? My gut says no at this stage. And if I do need to refactor it, that might become, like, I'm not seeing the need right now, but that might become more apparent once I build in a little bit more functionality and go, yeah, absolutely, let's refactor it. Okay. Just looking around. Now if I bring Joanne up and Joanne gets it correct, it says Joanne is moving into the next round, but in this scenario, there's only one player left. So really, Joanne's won. And this is a case where if there's only one active player, do we just straight up move to the leaderboard and say celebration time? Right? Because if you finish round here, you still need to come back here. And there's this bring up the first player business, which makes no sense now because there's only one player. And you have to end game. So that flow doesn't make any sense. So on this page, it seems like when there is only one player left, and all questions have been answered, it means that I need to at least not display this, right? And maybe instead of finish round, it should be like end game. Excuse me. Because you still want the screen. You still want verification that the answer was correct, right? You don't want immediately to jump into the leaderboard and because a different student might say, hey, was that actually correct? Was it? And so this is sort of the proof that that you got it correct. So I'm noticing now there's a bit more refactoring I could do. Like, for example, this here should be of the same font and size that question was. But I've already started my train of thought on kind of fixing this logic. So I'll do that, and then maybe I'll refactor later. Okay. So I have this game state. See how useful this is? And it's everywhere. This the time I spent refactoring that is well worth it. Okay. I'll need to go in the code where this is mentioned. And here I need some kind of check to say, like, all questions. So a few thoughts here. All turns in this round have been answered, right? So all turns in the round have been answered. And sorry, let's actually make it as like logic, right? If all the turns in this round are answered and there is only one remaining player, then then there is no next player and no more rounds. Okay, that's sensible. And here I'm only getting one turn, right? I'm only getting the turn where I'm at. And the question is, should all the turns for a round be returned here so that there is a view of that? And there's a good case to do that. It's not a lot of data coming back, right? Even if there's 30, 40, 50, 100, not a big deal. Allows me to do this very simply. And then this here can become simpler as well. So there might be a reason for get turns. And again, if I'm wrong, we'll change it. No problem. We'll change back. Like, I don't think this is wasted time, even if I'm incorrect, because I will have learned something there. So I want to get turns for the round, but this I don't need to pass in the turn number again. So here I think I can just copy that entire thing and get rid of turn number. I'll leave get turn still here. I'm not modifying it because, again, that might still be mildly relevant later. We're no longer in find turn, we're in find turns, which I'll write in a second. And here should change this to turns. So now we'll be returning multiple turns. And now I have to go write find turns, and it's wherever find turn is, which is here. So yeah, just going to copy that wholesale, and we'll paste it and modify it. And again, no turn number this time. And have I done this? Have I selected multiple? Because I haven't used Keasley that much, so select all, execute. Because if I do turns, and this, the typing of this is turns, an array of turns. Perfect. So this will go away. And I do want the turns to be ordered. And I don't remember whether there is an ordering for the turns. So let's go to the turn table. And there's a number. So that number decides. So I do want it ordered by number ascending, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which means the last item on this list is the turn. And then maybe on the front end, it becomes the current turn. So there's no turn not found per se at this stage. If not, this should just be an empty array. There's no nulling here, so that's fine. We got find turns, so now let's go back up the chain. Let's import find turns here, and now this will do find turns. Let's go back up the chain again, and here I want turns. I no longer pass this, and my turn is computed based on exactly that. Okay. And here, having made this chain down the entire chain tree, let me go back and just make sure everything is working. And it is here. I'm on turn number 2 of round number 2. That's fine. I'm on turn number 1 of round number 2, and all of that information does seem to be loading. And maybe I can add my turns here into my debugger. And my turn as well. So all of that is just visible to me as I'm here. And so all this correct information should be relevant. Okay. Now I need to check. Now I have all the data. I need to check what this comment says. If all the turns in this round are answered, how do I check that? Answer state. And let me just double check what values answer state contains. So this pending, correct, incorrect, and locked in, which is on the front end, but on the back end, we have pending. So essentially, yeah, that will do it. All turns answered. And if I debug that up front, it's true. And I can use all turns answered for other sort of indicators on this page. So that's perfect. And the other point is, like, what's AI? Like, why AI are you just duplicating the comment that's up here? This is a tool. Like, here's my thing with AI. It's like, this is a tool that has access to all the open source code written and a lot of private code as well. It has access to all the open text and like a lot of illegally copyrighted texts in the world. And it's trying to, it has access to the code on this page. And it's trying to give like helpful code to me. And with all of this knowledge, all of this information, all of this processing power, we're literally destroying the planet so I can get this autocomplete. It just reproduces a comment I already have on the page. Thanks a lot, buddy. Okay, where were we? And there's only one player remaining, so I have total active player count. Maybe I can just pull that up here. Maybe I pull up all my data up front first, and then I have my computer properties. So if total active player count is 1, then there is no next player and no more rounds. So I can just say if all turns answered. Really, it's just there's no next player if all turns have been answered, right? But now something weird has happened. It says they're out of the running. And let me double check that. Oh no, they are out of the running. That's actually correct. Nothing weird happened there. Let me just. All that happened was this button disappeared, because if there's a next player, then that button shouldn't show, and that's because I've manually inserted myself here. So this is the page I'm on, and this is the code I've added, and everything is legit. Okay. So let me just get my thoughts in order again. I'm here. Nothing has changed here. There's just, is moving on to the next round. There's no such thing as moving on to the next round. Sorry, I'm trying to name things, and which is taking me a second to go through my brain. So it's worth spending just a little bit more time on this, because I'm saying if all the turns in this round are answered and there is only one remaining player, there is no next player and no more rounds. So really the essence of the value that I want now is that whether there's a round. So const has more rounds. And let's see if AI has given me something useful. It has not. Dear viewer, given me anything useful. Even though my comment here indicates the logic I want, right? There's no ambiguity here. So we'll say if all turns answered, and now it's given me the right thing, right? Has more rounds is when there's more than one player remaining. So this idea of moving on is only applicable if there's more, has more rounds. I don't know why we needed all this classes. Seems excessive. And here I can, yeah, I know. So let me just bring this back, because here's a place where I think this needs to be changed. So player avatar, that should be the correct display. And now I can bring back that the if has more rounds, and no need to take everything else. And now that goes away. And now this, instead of finish round, should be finish game. Finish round. And here I can have a if has more rounds. So if I have more rounds, I can finish this round and move on to the next one. But otherwise, I end the game. Thank you. This is okay. This is nice. This is where it knows what to do. And here, yeah, it's kind of created its own button type and whatnot to use. But let me also debug has more rounds. So I can do that. Has more rounds is false, and yet it's still showing us. I just want to see if finish round is anywhere else. Yeah, so it's in 2 places, and maybe that's duplication. I should fix. I have an itchy ear. Any solutions? Okay, so I will just duplicate this for now, because again, I'm not in refactoring mode. But if I were, then I'd bring this back in here. I want this VL scenario, and now that should change to endgame. That's correct. And now I can create an endgame function. I already have an endgame function somewhere, I believe. And this redirects to so I'm getting a call, which I addressed later. So I'll just give myself a second. Okay. I have an in-game function. It can go into, can this go into utils? I mean, it's small enough for me to just copy paste for now and not worry about refactoring, and that's something that can come up later. Verify that ID is correct and all of that makes sense. And when I click end game right now, I go to the leaderboard where there's one active remaining player, and it's just this. So now we actually have like a single winner, and we could, celebrate with confetti. So I think I'm happy with the flow, at least at that level. So let me, there's one, there's only one user left, and everyone's answered, and there's only one user left, which means they got it correct, right? And let's just take a look at so I'm pulling in all the turns now and computing my current turn and computing a bunch of other values that lets me know the state of the game. And then I'm accounting for the end game button. Okay, that looks good. Apart from the refactoring I need to do because I'm duplicating the end game button. And here I've just added find turns instead of just finding a single turn, and I've added an endpoint to retrieve that. So getting all turns on the turn page. Okay, that looks good to me. And then what will I do now? What shall I do now? Maybe now I can take a look at that. So I'm about an hour, 20 minutes in. Maybe I can spend some time, 15 minutes maybe. If I don't get it in 15, then I might do it later. The case where I can, if everybody gets it wrong. So it will still say end game, but that state is incorrect, right? So let me create a new game to create that scenario. We'll generate players, submit, and in this case, let me lock in an incorrect answer. So Maeve is gone. Next up, I have Ignatius, and Ignatius gets it right. That should not say end game, right? That's wrong. Whatever I did earlier broke something. So let's see what our turns say. I have pending turns, right? So all turns answered is false. Has more rounds is false. Why? Why is has more rounds false? Let's just double check again. Has more rounds when all turns answered. So all turns have not been answered, right? All turn answered is false. Oh yeah. So wait, hold on. Sorry, just let me assess what's happening. There, at this stage, there is only one player. No, there's 2 active players. So total active player value is greater than 1, and all turns have not been answered. So my logic was incorrect. If all the turns in this, so while this is true, the inverse is not necessarily true, which is to say, like, if all turns answered is false, therefore has more rounds is false. All turns answered. Let me just take a second to run this through my head. I have 2 players remaining, and not all turns have been answered, which means I don't know right now. I have no idea right now what the state is, right? I haven't even done my last turn. So there's something odd at play here. There's another odd thing, is because I don't create all the questions up front. I'm creating the question. I'm creating the question as it's being requested, which means that the number of turns don't match the number of players. So if turns.value.length is less than no, that doesn't make sense either. Yeah, I need to figure out the path, because the thing is I'm modifying the active player, inactive player at the same time generating the turns dynamically. I don't have a sense right now because I have 2 active players, but I have more turns remaining. Like when I click this button, well, it's gone now. That my scenario is gone now. But had I clicked on that button, I should have gotten a different. So let me actually run through this and figure this out. So start the round. I have Cheyenne, which is active. Answer it. It's inactive, and there's a next up, and this says end game. I should have noticed that a second sooner actually than I did. And the logic for end game is if has more rounds, finish round. But I guess in this scenario, like, why would you finish the round if you didn't want to end the game? It's almost, in a sense, correct, theoretically. Because what would you do when the round ended? Like, yeah, what would you do? Start a new round, even though this round isn't finished? What for? So there's some like actual gameplay logic that needs to be addressed, which is, I think, why my head wasn't consolidating around both the way, like, because all the turns aren't created up front and a number of different things happening here. So I'll take a look at that in a second later and still focus on what I wanted, which is, so I'm still in round 1. I want to answer correct here. Next up, I want to answer correct here. And this actually should say end round and not end game. So that's 100% incorrect. And let me just take account of this scenario, which is there's multiple active players and all the turns have been answered. I guess I don't update turns when I reload game. So reload game, it's probably a good idea to update turns as well. And now I'm getting finished round because the turns have been updated. So that maybe that was just the issue, is like, actually the turns haven't been updated. So let me start a new game and run through that again. So Amos will be incorrect. And this is like totally incorrect, right? Because, and now this is where like that bug is sort of more indicative or prevalent, which is like, if you have more than one player remaining, this is also about whether the player has had a turn, right? So have all players had a turn? That's the real question that we're asking. It's not whether all turns have been answered. So that's the distinctness that we need to address. So and maybe I could just be super explicit. Have all players answered. Turns out value every, and this doesn't answer that question, right? Here's AI kind of not answering the question. I would have preferred that it did that. So how do I know? The problem is I don't have a sense of rounds, and therefore I don't know at this stage which players are in which round. And therefore I can't tell you whether all players have answered or not because I deactivate them. And so I have no idea. So maybe now I need to actually, in the backend, create a concept of rounds. And that round can store the player IDs of the players that participate in that round. And that will give me an idea of whether all the players have answered the question. This is why this wasn't making sense. I'm going to leave this here so I can come back and fill that out as it starts to make sense. My app will be in a state of disarray until I've completed those steps. Okay. That seems like a fine thing to do. So now I have to create a table called rounds. Maybe I can create the type first so I have a clear understanding of what that might be. So a game has many players and a game has many rounds. So very similar to the player, I'm going to copy and sort of before turn define round table. This is funny, turntable and round table are actually things. Has a game ID, has a number, right? Round number. Does not need a name, icon, or adjective. Can have a state, right? It's either completed or not, I guess. No. So it could be pending or started or finished. And that seems sensible to me. And I can now use this to generate a table. But first, let me just define these types. Still really like AI for this. And so I have my generic types defined. I have my table defined, and I know what fields I want in it. And maybe there's some other fields I add later on, and that's fine. So create rounds. I have a create rounds file. And I'll do a few things in this file. I'll just open create turns or what have you. So I have some reference here, both for myself and for my friend AI. Will it know? It knows to do this. So we'll accept that. Let me just accept the whole thing and just verify. So it has a game ID number and it's just missing state. So add column state. And it defaults to pending. That's fine. And why do I have An error, can't find SQL. That's fine. That's just an import that we need to do. And let me just review. Creating rounds table with an ID, a game ID, a number, and a state. Looks good. And the drop table here. And let's go ahead and create this table. Migrate latest. This will give me the table in my DB, and now I can take a look. I'm just going to quickly check my messages just in case. Bad things are happening. No bad things are happening at the moment. All right, where am I? I've created a rounds table, and I want to now create rounds when so let me just go back to the state of the game and generate submit. I don't need rounds here. When I start the game, do I need a round? Yeah, I can create a round here. All right, so when I start the game, it should have a round already. Or should the round be created when I click start round 1? I think when I start the round. I might need it earlier. I don't need it earlier, right? But I might need it earlier, but I definitely need it. Like, there's no doubt that the round should exist here. Except the problem is that there's 1 here, which means that this page actually should have, I'm just still unsure. Okay. And the reason I'm unsure is because what's my lead in to this game? So generate player submit, start game. Let's take a look at start game. It is doing create game. And when I create the game, should the game have a round at the time of create game? Let's take a look. Create game with players. So I'm passing on the players. And here, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I should have a round 1 here because, like, why are you even starting the game? And there only needs to be 1 round at this stage of this game creation. So let's do that. Create first round. Insert into turns. Yeah, no. Insert into rounds, values, game ID. Yes. Why? Oh yeah, okay, so I missed one thing, which is in my types file. When I added the table, I need to add it here. So there's some association with rounds and round table. And now this will help with this. So now it knows that the typings are correct. And I did miss something when I created my players table, which is the list of players need to be, the player IDs need to be there in the order that they're going to go. And so should I be also creating my turns up front as well, maybe? The only reason I don't want to create my turns up front is I have to create all my questions up front. And if I create my questions up front, then that's actually not true. I don't need to create my questions up front. Sorry, just give me a second. Because in this case, it might seem like, yeah, I don't need rounds, even though I did all this work to generate rounds and all this thinking. I don't need rounds. I can create my turns up front. I don't need to create the question. I will create the questions up front for now, but I don't need to. I can always generate a question later. I still need to know how many turns I have in this round. And there's no explicit need because the number of turns will be dependent on the number of players remaining. So I have my like, hey, all the turns or all the players in this round. So I actually don't need to add an extra data model object here. So that will go away. This still remains. I still have to answer this question properly. This is good. This goes away. And this goes away. All that gone. And now the question is when I create my turns. And it seems like now the right time to do it would be when I start the round, right? I know this data, that's fine. But when I start the round, I'm going to a turn page and I need all my turns. So that start round click needs to create all the turns. It happens to just create one turn, but should create all turns. Perfect. This is great. That becomes create turns. We're still passing it the game ID and the round ID because it's going to create all the turns for this round. Okay. I think it's fine. If I can get this done in the next 20 minutes, that's pretty good. So I want create turns. Yeah, let me go to where create turn is. And again, I'll still leave create turn there for reference, but I might not use it. So this will become create turns. It still has this exact same input. I have to find, and none of this business needs to be done anymore. And I will actually just generate the questions still all the same. So here, just trying to find out where I actually ended up creating that turn. I don't have to necessarily do a bulk thing here, but I could. So let me go up here and say, create all turns for the round with the active remaining players, right? That's what you're doing. So const active players. I've gotten my game, and let me just double check here that when I get my players, they are ordered by number. They are perfect, because that's the most important part here. And here are my active players. Amazing. And now I have to say const turns is equal to, I could probably do an active players.map. And here it's sort of saying, hey, what if there are no active players, right? But that should not happen. This will always be an array, so I don't need this question mark here. That was also just AI. And here I want, yeah, I mean something like this, but not exactly. I don't need all this last turn business to generate the number. Number will just be index +1 as we go down the row. And so here I'm generating my question. Here I'm determining the answer and filling in the rest of the details. So what I'll quickly do for my reference purposes, I'll just split my screen and look at this portion here with this portion here. I actually don't want create turn. I don't want to return create turn. I want to return just the object that I will use to do one single insert. Excuse me. So create turn, game ID, round ID, question, answer, number, state, and player ID. That looks good to me. And then in this case, I'm actually just comfortable I'll go ahead and remove all of this code, not necessary. And here it seems like the turn was being returned. Whoops. It seems like the turn was being returned. And I'm not 100% sure what to return in this scenario. Like, do I return the created turns, or do I just, have the game object contain the game data, player data, and turn data all the time and base everything off of the game object? Because let's say there's 30 players in a game. No, I'll keep the turns separate for now because the turns are dependent upon the round, right? And that changes. So I don't want all the turns to be there. I just want the turns for this round. So create turns in DB. And we'll say, I don't think we need, we can say created turns, DB dot insert into turns, values turns returning all. But also, maybe I don't want to do this. So I just do the insert straight up with the turns. Sorry, why is there a promise? Because AI added this async, which is not true and unnecessary. And now I just need to double check whether the insertion is correct. Yeah, I mean, I didn't change anything, so why would this be? Game ID, number, round number, question is not assignable to type insert expression, database turns. Why is it not? What's the catch, bro? Turn table, let's take a look. So ID is not there, but game ID, player ID. And maybe I can player ID, number, question, answer, and answer state, and round number. So what's the deal? Why won't it create? Let me take a look at my create turn function. Maybe there'll be some good indication of maybe I was doing something additional in there that is being expected. No, not really. The only thing I can think of is maybe doing this as turn insert. And that settles it, but in effect, like, can I say satisfies? Because, in the case that this didn't satisfy it, there should be an issue. Where there is, look at that. But when it does satisfy it, there's no issue. So here, I don't want to say as, I want to say satisfies. And then that checking is happening. But that should have been automatic here in my mind. Like, I don't think I should have to say satisfied. It should have just worked. But okay, no problem. Let's keep trucking. Find turns. And I want to use 5 turns here because I want to make sure that this is always the case, which probably would have happened if I did a returning all, but let's just, const created turns. And here I want to do await find turns for game and ID, round number, perfect. And here I will return the created turns. Okay, let's go back. Kind of tracing my steps back to here. And now, when you start the round, the turn number is always 1. Like, there's no ain't no thing. So I think I can just say 1 here. But if anybody disagrees, I can actually just say turn number, take the first one, and just, keep people happy. Okay, so now when I create this, I have all my turns all at once, which means that on the next page, when I'm on the turns page, this, because I am dumping the turns on the turns page, should show me that data. Just for sanity's sake, let me start a new game with Rory, Gunnar, and Esteban. And I'm here at round 1. I start round 1. And if everything went right, in this case, all my questions have been predetermined. Now, in the case where, let's say, the questions get more complex and they're slow to generate, and I don't want to generate 30 questions at once, then now I would, when I'm on the turn page, check whether the question has been generated or not, and then generate it as we go. But not something I need to worry about now. And that was the thing I was having, is like, and I thought about all that and ended up on the path of creating rounds because I wanted to maintain one turn at a time. But really that, and then I realized as I went through that logic to say, hey, like, why am I preventing something that's unnecessary for me to address now, and adding more complexity by adding a round object, even though I did the code for the round object first, pretty much halfway. That's fine. So now I have all the turns, and the turns should not, and I'm reloading the turns as well. So now the turn should, maybe this just works, right? I mean, it probably doesn't, but if it does just work, that's great. So I'll say incorrect here. Next up is broken. Let's see why. No active player found. Because I'm still creating the turn when we do next up, right? So that code needs to be modified. Next turn. Here I'm doing a next turn, and at this stage, why? I mean, this should actually be an active player, so I don't know why the server is like, hey. It's doing this because it grabs the last turn and it says, hey, are there any more players? So this is actually correct. So thumbs up past me. But I no longer need to create a turn. When we do next turn, I actually simply need to go to the next turn, which will be the current turn plus 1, right? And so let's just see. And here's this sort of confusing bit of business where, because of the scoping, we're saved, but next turn number is equal to the current turn, which is question ID plus 1. I could also theoretically just get it from turn.value.number plus 1. But I think this, if not. So I don't need to do this, and I can just do this. And next up should just really be a link to the next turn, and we're good to go. All of that is being pulled. Okay, time for a sip of water. Total active player count is 2. I'm still in round 1, and I want both of these to be correct. Next up, lock and answer correct. And now this correctly says finish round and not end game. Because all my turns are there, everything. No, I actually don't know. I don't know why it works, but it works. And here, when I click start round 2, my turns for round 2 will be generated. And I should only have 2 turns with those players. And now I am at the point, and maybe if I can do this in 10 minutes, great. Which is, I want to address the case where both answers are wrong in this round, which means all the turns are incorrect, right? Which means the next round should have all the same players, which means because I'm marking players inactive as we go, and maybe I shouldn't be doing that. I mean, it was the easier thing to do before. I could still manage to do that. I just have to re-enter them into the game, and then we should be good. And I can re-enter them into the game because I have all the player IDs up front. Now, this is the purpose that creating the rounds object would have served in the database. It would have given me the player IDs that I need to reset. The other thing I could do potentially is assess inactive by the answer state here, right? So player ID 54 is inactive if this is incorrect. And so I don't actually change it in the database as we go. But I don't see a reason why not to, and I'm just speaking out loud, sort of these considerations that I'm making as I go. So here in this case, I want to answer incorrectly both times. So I go incorrect. Next up, incorrect. And it says, it shouldn't say out of the running in this case. It shouldn't say out of the running because all of the answers are incorrect. All the turns are incorrect, and therefore there should be an option to continue. So let's find where out of the running is. Let's also fix this. And okay. And then let's also I need to now determine whether has more rounds should consider whether or not sorry, I just have 3 or 4 thoughts in my mind at the same time. So first, I guess I don't need this for now because it so happens that having all the turns created pretty much does the right thing. But definitely me updating the database as I go is potentially creating issues. But let's see. Let me actually give it a shot, do the code, and let's see if it creates any issues. And if it does, we'll come back. That's fine. Okay. So what I want to do, in this scenario, I want to detect whether we want to keep going. So what's happened here is we've answered the question. So set answer state has happened. And because set answer state has happened, we in the back end have, sorry, just need to check my messages again. Everything is fine. Because in the back end, we've updated inactive, all of that is kind of, so maybe I can do the simplest thing, which is in the back end here, I'm marking the players as inactive, right? If this answer was wrong. But what if I did a check here to see whether if all turns in this round are incorrect. If so, set players in this round to active, actually. And I'll quickly give this a shot to see whether the rest of the game logic just adjusts itself and happens to work. So let's get all the turns in this round. Let's see if every turn is incorrect. And if that's the case, then so this is not correct, right? But let's see. Whoops. What do I want? Const player IDs, and we'll get them from the turn. And now this should be the case where in this game, I want to set active the players, this group of player IDs. And then the updated term comes back, and then we see. So in this case, I'm going to go back and start a new game. And here I'll just, for simplicity's sake, just have two players, and I'm going to test this theory straight off in round one. Right? So I have my turns here. And we'll lock in an incorrect answer for this turn is incorrect, and the other one is pending. And now this person is inactive. And we'll do the same thing here. Next up, incorrect. And now it says finish round and not end game. But it says out of the running, which it shouldn't say. And so we need to correct that. But you can see that the players are not active, even though the answers are incorrect. And I have finish round instead of end game because I have multiple active players. That makes sense. And so I'm content with that, except for the out of the running thing needs to change. So everything almost works except for out of the running. And I can test that again in round two where both of them get it incorrect. And now I can fix this out of the running business because you're not necessarily out of the running just because you were incorrect, it turns out. You're out of the running if even after everything is reloaded, you are inactive, like you're the so I need to check whether the player is inactive. Current player dot state is inactive. Then you're out of the running. So that should disappear. Let me start a new game to test this portion out. And I will add a third person because I want somebody to, well, we'll see. Well, I mean, I'll fix that later. Like, I think there's some extra messaging that can go around this, right? Lock in the answer, incorrect. I mean, you're out of the running, but you still have a chance, right? Anytime, like if there's any chance that all players might be incorrect, you're technically not entirely out of the running. So they're out of this round. Well, that's clear. Everyone, even if you're correct, you're out of this round. So we'll change the language later. Correct. Next up, correct. This logic here needs some work. So round two should only have two active players. And incorrect, out of the running, lock in answer, incorrect. Now it doesn't say out of the running because the idea of out of the running changes now, and we can finish round and start round three. I'm happy with this so far. And I think there's some more cleanup work for me to do later, which is just the language around being out of the running or not and detecting that. And then, or the reverse, maybe we can just say everybody's out of the running if they're incorrect. And once we detect that everybody in this round was incorrect, which is super simple, right? Like if all the turns are incorrect, then if all the turns in this round are incorrect, then we can have messaging just saying, hey, you get another chance. Like there's no clear winner. And that is something I can start and take a look at the next time. And so for now, let me actually, while I'm still on stream, just take a look at my changes here. And here I'm not getting the turn anymore because that turn is already available. Like I'm not creating a turn anymore at every step. I am loading the turns every time I'm loading the game. And we're just not doing this out of the running messaging unless the player is inactive. And there might be a bug there. I think I sensed a bug, but I don't want to get into that right now. Creating all the turns at once. Really, this change, like we did all that to fix this edge case, which, with few players, it's actually not that edge of a case. 2 players can get it wrong very simply. And so addressing, is that how you spell it? Addressing? Accounting for all players being incorrect in a round. We're creating all the turns for the round up front. And that's really kind of how we're fixing it. And I think that's it. I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining me on this episode, this session of an in-between session of Product Like It's Friday, even though it's Sunday. And maybe I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see. I'm still trying to keep my streak going just as I have this energy. And so maybe I'll be back. Maybe it'll be Mary. We'll see. And I'll continue with fixing up the game. Maybe at this point I can start focusing on some elements, kind of, making these elements more prevalent, giving sort of just cleaning up the UI and the UI elements on the page. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you some random time in the